Welcome to Chef Look Cooks, brought to you with the generosity of the Edgartown Friends of the Edgartown Library. I'm Virginia from the library, and I'm just going to let Chris, our resident chef, take it away. I will say I'm so excited about this recipe, though. My grandma used to make this.
Nice.
And I'll bet your meatballs will be better, though. She didn't put ricotta in it.
Thanks for that awesome intro, Virginia. Yeah, so we're gonna do a beautiful Italian wedding soup today. Italian wedding soup, I think I had when I was like a kid out of a can, and it had these little tiny little meatballs, and I'm sure some of you at least have had it like that. It's really nice, but one of the things that you lose a lot when you have like a processed soup like that is the texture. And so the pasta, the ansi di pepe, gets soft. You know, it doesn't really have that sort of bite that you really want. The soup is definitely better. A lot of soups are really good the day after. This soup is good the night it's made. It's still good the day after, but like the night it's made, it's got the most texture, the most flavor. You want things to taste different in this. You want to be able to taste the celery, taste the carrot, taste the meatball itself. You know, everything should be sort of its own sort of showcase. Not that it's not going to be good the next day, but it's a beautiful fresh soup where everything is supposed to sort of taste really intense and really sort of tore you. I'm literally just staring at my mise en place right now because it's so beautiful. Lots of veggies in this one. So as usual, I have all my ingredients laid out in front of me. Hopefully all of my tools. My kitchen is pretty well set up, which is nice. But if it's not, mise en place, which means everything in its place, is a really great technique. I talk about it every episode. I'm just going to give you a little quick show here. I've got literally everything I need here to cook. Got my compost bucket there too. All the stuff for the meatballs on the left side here. All my stuff for my soup on the right side, because we're going to be doing that after the meatballs are cooking. So everything in this place doesn't just mean having everything, but it also means putting it in sort of a method that makes sense for your process. So in this case, I have meatball side and soup side. All the tools I hope I'm going to need are there. So let's jump into it. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to make the meatballs. And we're going to make the meatballs just because they're going to take the longest to cook. The soup itself is really just going to be, like I said, it's a sort of a fresh soup. So you cook it until the veggies are done and then you're in. So we're going to just pop ourselves down here to this bowl. I'm going to show you how to make the meatballs. It's a pretty simple recipe, which I really love. Meatballs in general are very, very easy. Actually, I was just making some pork dumplings the other night. And I was having some like serious meatloaf vibes. There's no binder in pork dumplings, binder being something like like a bread or a cheese. It's really just meat and vegetables. And then, you stuff it in something so you don't have to worry about it going apart. But I was having some serious meatloaf vibes. I love making dumplings. So I put our chicken in there. I couldn't find dark meat chicken. I'm sure that's something that exists in the real world outside of Martha's Vineyard, but I just got what I could find. You can always grind it yourself if you have a grinder. That's like a very big possibility. Get some chicken thighs. This is definitely going to be better with chicken thighs. And there's probably some thigh meat in there, but most of it's, like breast scraps and rib scraps and stuff. But if you can get thigh meat and grind it yourself, it's going to be really, really tasty. It's just going to be more moist. There's more fat in it. So we've got our beautiful, just want to make sure I don't mess this one up. Our beautiful chicken in there. And then we're just going to throw an egg sort of to the side so that we can sort of crack it and whisk it up. The recipe mentions, putting it in there and whisking it first, but like that's really just because they are pretty big stiflers about not over mixing these meatballs. And that's a good point. Like usually when you over mix them, they can get kind of tough. They get too homogeneous, and that turns them more into like a bread than a meatball. You really don't want a bread, and you're not really making a meatloaf here. You are making a meatball, and the main difference I think is really how much you mix it. So we're just going to go ahead and put that egg in there. I'm going to use my hand here, and I'm just going to break the yolk and whisk it up a little bit. We're going to be getting our hands dirty here anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. And I always like to have a little, towel anyways, just to keep everything clean. So we got chicken, we've got egg. Now we're going to just pretty much put the rest of our ingredients in there just all at once. It is a very, very simple recipe. I love that about it. I'm just going to break this chicken up a little bit into the egg just to help the mix process. Sometimes the strands, if they're really cold, can be a bit of a pain. So we're just going to go in here, get our ricotta. It's 3/4 cup ricotta. And this recipe can be doubled, tripled. You can even, if you really want to, just like modify it as well. You don't have to go these exact ratios of, ricotta and breadcrumbs and such. Being a meatball, it's going to hold together pretty well as long as it's mostly meat. If you do put, more ricotta in, just put more panko in as well. If you put less ricotta in, you could potentially take the panko out entirely, though honestly, I wouldn't do that. I think that's really what makes it so good. All right, let's just get the rest of this ricotta out here. And this ricotta, I'd already used some of this ricotta, so that's why I'm using it all. You won't have to use this entire package. This is 15 ounces, and you should need about, 6 ounces? What's 3/4 cup? No, 3/4 cup should be about 6 ounces. So, but I had used that before. So got a ricotta in there. We're gonna go in and get some panko breadcrumbs. These are gonna be our binder. These are what are gonna sort of start to absorb all of the fats and liquids that are coming out of there. And instead of them oozing out, they're going to ooze in to this panko and create a really nice texture for us. So we're gonna do 3/4 cups of panko as well. Always measure over your bowl if you can. That way, stuff like this that spills, when you're not doing a recipe that cares super, super intensely about, specifics on measuring, it can just go right in there and then you don't have to have as much cleanup later. All right, put that away. Beautiful. So now the next real big flavoring agent in here is parsley. So I don't know about you guys, when you went to the grocery store, I couldn't find flat leaf parsley, which is fine. Honestly, I used to hate curly leaf parsley when I was younger. A lot of people say it has less flavor. I personally think the reason I hated it when I was a kid is because it tastes more like grassy, and it's got that really nice color, texture to it too. But I love it now that I'm older. I think it does taste more grassy, maybe a little bit less parsley-y, but it's still really, really good. It's got that nice green flavor, which is really what you're going for here. So it says to use like the soft stems, and the recipe says to use the soft stems and the tips. So what we're going to do for that, and much like cilantro, you can really use the whole of this, for making stocks or even for eating. The crunchy bits here kind of act like celery, but we're going to go sort of at the top of our what's it called, our bunch here, and just try and cut up about half the bunch. That's going to be about half a cup. And you can always sort of like take your cup measure and like put it next to it, and it's going to grow a little bit once you chop it. That looks about like a half a cup. So we're going to go for that. And we'll save some of that for a garnish later. But I don't want to keep it on my board right now, so we're just going to leave it to the side. So once you have the amount that you want, you just want to sort of gather it in a ball if you can. And make sure I get a good angle here. I know I had one for the bowl, but I didn't check my cutting board. Oh yeah, it's not bad. Sweet. So you want to get a little ball going here and just put in any of the stems you can. You're just going to run your knife along the ball, cutting basically as thin a strips as you possibly can off the side of the ball. You're basically kind of trying to just like shave the herbs. You're making a nice solid ball so that you can get a good cut on it. This is going to help protect the herbs too, so you don't really beat them up too much and start to bruise them. Bruising can be good in certain situations when you want like a lot of flavor. But for this, we want this parsley to look green. When we take these out of the oven and when we eat them later, when they're in the soup, we want to be able to bite into them and see little green flecks. And if we bruise our herbs, we're going to see little brown flecks, and that's just not going to be as good. So now that's nice and cut. We're just going to do a quick little chop over the top to make it pretty small. We are going to make pretty small meatballs. And so because of that, we want to make sure we have pretty small chops on our parsley, just so it doesn't make the whole process kind of a pain in the butt later. That should be about good. Yeah, that's nice. Just a nice sort of small, rough chop still, but you want it to be pretty good small sized. And that looks good to me. I mean, we can measure it just because, again, you want to sort of pack it in there too. So that's 1/4 cup, half a cup. I really like parsley, and I know that this meatball recipe can take it, so I'm putting that in there too. All the parsley. Okay, so black pepper is in there as a teaspoon. I'm gonna probably put closer to a tablespoon. I think with a dish like this, chicken is a white meat. I love black pepper with anything that's sort of got a pale color to it. So, also we have the ricotta in there. It's really creamy. Anything kind of creamy like that, I think black pepper just kind of shines. And there's kind of a ban on black pepper on white fish in like the culinary industry because it looks like char marks. Looks like you messed up the process and like got some of the grill or whatever on the fish. But I think that's so stupid. I love black pepper on fish, especially white fish. So I just go ahead and do it anyways. But One of my chefs told me, never black pepper on fish. It makes it look like you were sloppy, but honestly, it also makes the fish taste really good. So I put it on all my fish now, just to spite him. And then garlic, which is always important, always a beautiful part of the experience. I've got a whole clove here. We're going to use this whole thing eventually. We're going to use, so what I did there is I took the root end and I pointed it up towards myself, and then I just pushed down on it at a slight angle. And as you saw, the clove just completely exploded, which is awesome. I love when they do that. And then we're just going to pick out some of the bigger ones in here to grate. We want to have the biggest ones just because grating small garlic is such a pain. And I think none of these are really as big as I like, so I'm going to pick 3 about that size. And while we're here, we're just going to go ahead and peel everything. So we're grating this garlic. So instead of crushing it like I usually do, I'm going to cut off the root end with my knife. What that's going to do is that's going to give me a really good access point to peel it and leave it whole. And because it's peeled and whole like this, I'll be able to grate it. If you don't feel like grating garlic, if you don't have something like a microplane like this, you can just use crushed garlic right out of a jar, or you can even just, chop it on the cutting board as fine as possible. It's not going to really hurt anything, but again, we are trying to make really small meatballs. It sort of gives it a nice vibe. It's more sort of close to that old OG can recipe I used to have when I was a kid. I don't know how they make those meatballs that small. Probably a machine, but the smaller the meatball, the more meatballs you're going to get too, which is really nice. It's nice to like stir the soup and see in your bowl, 6 or 7 meatballs instead of, just like 1, 2, or 3, like really big ones. You can make them big too. If you like big meatballs, like do it. Have it more like a spaghetti and meatball style where you've got like the soup with all the veggies in it and just like a big meatball sitting right in the middle of the bowl. Like that will work. I would just increase the cook temp, obviously. Maybe if they're that big, you could probably take the temperature in the inside of the meatball and make sure that you're at that 160. Anytime you're doing chicken specifically, 165 technically, you want to make sure you get to 165, especially when you're doing something like this with ground meat and you're mixing in other things. You really want to be careful about that temperature. Chicken can be dangerous, and especially chicken from the supermarket like this, where you don't know where it's been. If you're getting something from a local market, someone who you know, someone who you trust, you might not have to worry about it as much. But for this, we're going to get that temp. All right, so I'm going to put my microplane right in my bowl like that. Helps a lot. You can also just hold it in your hand. I like to hold it sort of close to my belly. And we're just going to grate our garlic back and forth as fast as you can. This is going to make really, really nice, small, intense flavored garlic for our meatball. And we won't even have a single bit of fiber in there. It's just going to be all ground up. Look at that. So good. You just eat that, honestly. Make a tea with that. Garlic turmeric tea. Oh, yeah. Or like a soup, honestly, at that point. A little cup soup. Come on. I love this microplane. I'm pretty sure I stole this from a kitchen somewhere that I worked at. They were just like, we don't need this anymore. Whoops. So I guess not technically stealing. And it's surprisingly sharp. It's really hard to actually cut yourself on these because your skin doesn't really lend itself to being microplaned, but it's been done before. Usually you'll get your knuckles. It's a dangerous experience. So again, if you don't feel comfortable with that, just don't do it. You can chop it. You can put it in a food processor. If you use enough garlic, honestly, you can just be food processing garlic once a week and save yourself a lot of time. It'll oxidize a little bit, but you can store it in vinegar if you want to. That's a really good way to stop it from oxidizing. All right, beautiful. So that's our garlic. Oh my God. And it just smells so good in here too. My cat just put a toy behind me. She wants me to play. Okay, let's see. Let's just double check. Make sure we have everything. 1 egg, garlic, ricotta, parsley, panko breadcrumbs, ground chicken, and black pepper. Awesome. So I didn't put salt in here because I personally am trying to eat less salt in my life, but you are more than welcome to put salt in here. I would go up to a tablespoon, probably no more than that. The ricotta is a little salty, and the soup is going to be plenty salty. So these meatballs really don't need that much of a hit. So I'm going to go ahead and start stirring this. I really like stirring it with a spatula. You can use a fork. You can use your hands if you want. The trick really, though, is to just make sure you don't over mix. You want everything to be incorporated so that there's a little bit of ricotta in each ball. There's a little bit of chicken, a little bit of seasoning. But you really don't want something that looks fully and utterly like homogenized where you can't really tell the difference between, each different one. Each meatball should have a little bit of a different sort of setup. Forget what the actual, there's an actual word that describes it. It's like the opposite of a homogenized, basically. So that should be about good. Almost probably overmixed, just to give you a quick little peek. But you can see, like, if I spread it out like that, there's like some pieces that are thicker with chicken and some that are thicker with sauce or with cheese. That should be perfect. That's going to be really, really, really tasty. Okay, cool. Let's leave that in there. So my oven is almost preheated. I am doing 475 because my oven is notoriously cold. 425 is at the least you want to do. We're really going to be cooking these fast. And if you want to go super duper fast, you can do them in a pan. And you can actually make like little patties almost. And they'll give a kind of cool sort of like UFO texture to the soup as well. Definitely not traditional, but you know, if you're in a rush and you just want dinner, it's a really great way to sort of speed up the process. Just do them right in a pan. Fry them just like you would like a little mini hamburger patty or something like that. And that can be really, really good. So we're gonna oil the pan just because we really don't want them to stick. Chicken doesn't have a lot of natural fat in it, and we didn't really add a lot of fat to this. So there's a high likelihood that they will stick to this pan. They still might stick, even though we did that, but we're gonna give it a best shot. And the nice sort of upshoot of that is I can take this oil, I'm gonna rub it on my hands here, and this is gonna help me when I'm rolling my meatballs. All right, so we're gonna basically, I think it was we're gonna do a 5x8 pattern on here. It's gonna be quite a lot of meatballs, and you don't want it to be too big. They really should be as small as you possibly feel comfortable with. Something along the lines of that is what I'm going for. And I'll show you a couple more. It's like half the size of a golf ball, maybe. It's about a tablespoon, maybe. Let me see if I can put this in a tablespoon. That's a teaspoon. Let's see. Yeah, it's about a tablespoon, like flattened off, and then you sort of ball it up. So again, something like that. And they don't have to all be the same size. But it's basically, for me, it's like a little pinch of meat. And then once I have the meat pinched like that, let me just make sure I'm in it good. I just sort of roll it up between the tips of my finger, nice and gentle, and you got a ball. And I think it's actually 5x9. No, I think it's 5x8. Should be able to do a 5x8. She'll also get you 40 meatballs, which is a very nice number. So yeah, making meatballs. Now be a good time if you have any questions, pop them in chat. It looks like there's some stuff I already saw. Recipe, awesome. Oh yeah, you can totally cook on parchment paper. It can be a little bit rough with this recipe in particular, just because we're gonna be taking these meatballs out of the oven at some point, and we're gonna be shaking them up in the pan to try and get them browned on another side. Because what's gonna happen is the bottom of these are gonna brown really well, but the top isn't. Part of that is the fact that my oven is horrible, but part of that is the fact that just they cook too quickly. They're not in the oven long enough to get a proper top brown. So to counteract that, we're gonna take them out after like 10 minutes. We're gonna give them a little shaky shake, try and get them to roll about in the pan a bit, and in doing so, hopefully get a different side on the bottom of the pan, hence giving them a whole nother side to brown. The browning is not super important. These meatballs have a really nice flavor anyways, so it's not going to be too big of a problem. So again, just roll, roll, roll. I'm starting to get kind of big here, which is a pretty classic tendency for me. So just, check yourself against your other meatballs, and it doesn't matter if they're different sizes. They're all going to cook pretty much the same amount of time, just because it's chicken. It just doesn't. It's really good at cooking. It's doesn't take too long. Sort of lay out our mat here. All right. This is gonna be so good. Just that parsley I ate earlier is already just like whetting my appetite. I love parsley. There was a long time when I was a kid when I didn't like it. And I think right about the time I started liking olives, I started also liking parsley. It's that kind of bitter flavor that I think a lot of kids just like don't enjoy. On like a survival standpoint, bitter usually means one of two things. It means just poison, or it means incredible nutrient content. So kind of a dangerous thing to try out as a child. So it kind of makes sense to maybe not like that flavor. But basically, as soon as I started liking olives, I think parsley kind of tagged along. I didn't really notice it till later though. I'm just gonna all right. It just smells so good in here. Every time I like break into like a garlic part of, because we didn't, you know, mix it super well. So there's going to be some higher densities of garlic. Every time I break into a little garlic pot, it's just like, ooh, so smelly. So good. Yeah, we're definitely going to be resending the recipes for sure. You can also pick them up at the library if you like. Got some printed out. Feel free to stop in. I'll give you a paper copy. If you've got a pen and pencil too, I can obviously read the meatball recipe to you as well. I'll read it right now while I'm rolling them actually. So the meatball recipe is 1 large egg, 2 garlic cloves grated, 3/4 cup ricotta cheese. They say to drain it. I obviously didn't do that. I don't think it really affects it. I kind of, especially since we're putting them in a soup, it doesn't make sense to remove moisture from something that is going to go into a soup later, to me at least. 1/2 cup of parsley, fresh cut leaves and fine stems. 3/4 cups of panko breadcrumbs plain, and a pound of ground chicken, dark meat if possible. I, again, could not find any dark meat, so that was unfortunate. But and then a teaspoon of black pepper, but I probably put about a tablespoon in mine because I absolutely love black pepper, like with a passion. And then you mix that just till it's combined. You roll into nice, probably, you know, 1/2 golf ball size, about a tablespoon worth of filling in each one. You should be able to get a, what was it? No, it's 8. It is 8 by 5 sort of grid on your sheet pan, your full or your half sheet pan, and then you bake them in a 425-degree oven for about 15 minutes. After 10 minutes, we're gonna take them out, give them a little shake. So that is the meatball recipe. So hopefully you had a pencil, were able to write that down. You can, again, also just pick up the recipe at the library. Totally fine. We've got them all printed out. What size meatballs? That size. I would say that is a tablespoon of filling, like I said, maybe an inch-ish, inch diameter or so. Yeah, something like that. And so again, in the recipe, I said save about a 1/2 cup-ish of the filling. I am just going to sort of fill this up. I definitely made some of these big, so I think I have a little bit less than a 1/2 cup here, but it's okay. It's really just, you just want to cook it up a little bit. It's going to help flavor the broth, mainly because we're only putting the meatballs in the broth for about, 5 minutes. So we're going to actually put some of the meat from the meatballs in the soup while we're cooking it. That way that flavor is going to be just all throughout the soup for the whole process. Sometimes some recipes will actually have you just cook the meatballs in the soup. But honestly, I don't trust this recipe. It's really soft to not just fall apart. I'm sure it'd be fine, but I just didn't trust it like that. So here's our meatball tray. Beautiful, just so you can get an idea of sort of what they all look like as far as size. Obviously, they don't have to be the same. This is an oiled sheet pan. My oven is preheated, so I'm just going to go ahead and toss these right in there. Set a timer for 10 minutes. And we're going to start our soup. All right, so the soup is like, I think I'm going to leave that off for now. I'm going to do some chops first. So the soup's pretty easy soup. It's kind of a classic like chicken noodle, basically. You've got chicken broth, you've got garlic, onions, celery, and carrots, which is a classic mirepoix. It's like a French soup base, basically. Sisters to the holy trinity of sort of Creole cuisine, which is peppers, onions, and celery. Or what other kind of spice mixes are there? I'm trying to think. There's another one that's really important too. Ginger garlic scallion, which is like a sort of the Asian version. You've got your onion in the scallion. You've got your sort of celery in the ginger. I guess garlic is the carrot in that one. It's kind of sweet. Or maybe the ginger is the carrot and the garlic is the celery. I have no idea. But ginger garlic scallion is also a really, really fabulous base for sort of flavor base for anything. But there is another soup one that I am almost positive Virginia would know. But she has taken a quick little hiatus. What is it? If any of you guys know, you can pop it in the chat. But it's basically just another 3 veggies that go really, really well. Fennel, celery, and onion, which I think is the base for a court bouillon. I think that's what it is. Anyways, usually there's like these 3 veggies that some culture around the world has sort of held up as like the be all end all of flavor. And in this case, mirepoix is what we're going to use, and that is a really classic one for pretty much any soup. You're going to find it in a lot of chicken noodle soups, especially. They're just really tasty. They have a really nice flavor together. And they are kind of, prolifically grown together as well, I guess. Peeling garlic. So I went ahead and crushed this garlic with the flat side of my knife, because this garlic we are going to sort of just completely and utterly obliterate into little tiny chunks for our soup. Sometimes I get talking and I just keep drying myself out. I should probably drink some water. Let's do that. Oh yeah, that's the stuff. Oh yeah. This is gonna be so good. I can already tell. You don't have to use this much garlic. I just want to make that very clear. This is how much I am using because I flipping love garlic with a passion. I would use more if I had more time to peel it or somebody to peel for me, but I just can't get enough. So that's how much garlic we're using. Use how much you want, including none at all. It's not gonna hurt my feelings. As long as you have a good meal, that's really all that matters to me. All right, so our oven is in. Smells great in here. Timer's on, already going through a pretty good amount of time too. Those meatballs aren't gonna take long. Excuse me, which is really nice. It's why I really like this soup is it just is so fast and so easy and so delicious. All right, so we're just gonna rough chop our garlic here. I got my my stove on medium, low. We're just gonna rough chop our garlic here, get some nice big chunks. And then we're gonna start cooking our soup. So the soup is pretty easy. We're gonna basically just saute our garlic. We're gonna pop in the reserved meat from our meatballs. And what that's gonna do is that's going to sort of give us a little bit of that meaty flavor. It's gonna stick to the bottom of the pan, which is gonna hopefully give us a little bit of a fond flavor. Fond being sort of the foundation of a soup. It's that sort of beautiful color that you get from cooking meat. It's why you cook meat in a pan before you add the veggies if you're making a soup. That's a really classic technique. If you've never done that before, I highly suggest it. If you're doing like a stew or whatever, sear off your meat in the pan before you add your veggies and then add the veggies. It just changes everything, and it changes everything for the better. All right, so I'm just cutting the onion here. Cut off both ends because I kind of want a rough chop here. If I was going for a smaller chop, I would leave the root end on, so I could cut into the side of it like this and break it up. But we don't really care about that. I kind of want. I don't want big pieces because again, we are kind of doing a delicate soup. Generally, when I do soups, I try and think about the size of my bites. And for us right now, we're going to be using little tiny anchovy di pepe, right? Acini di pepe. That's how you say it. So those are going to be really, really small. And you're going to get multiples of those in a bite. And we're definitely not going to cut our vegetables that small because that would be crazy. But you want your veggies to be small-ish, just so that it gives the sort of it gives a cohesiveness to the dish when everything sort of looks the same. And the only real big things we're going to have in there are going to be the pieces of greens, which is kind of the whole idea because, as Virginia said, it's about the sort of marriage of the greens and into the soup. And then, of course, the meatballs, which is, the main feature, I would say, of this soup. So I can smell my pan getting hot, so I think I'm going to go ahead and, before I finish cutting this onion, what I did on the onion too, I'm sure you saw, I kind of moved my knife at an angle around it, and that sort of bypasses the need to cut into it sideways and deal with these sort of curved flanks here. All right, so we're going to hit some olive oil into our pan. You can use duck fat, you can use bacon fat, you can use pretty much anything you want for fat, but I do suggest using some fat. Otherwise, you're going to just end up with a bit of a mess. That's looking real nice. Go ahead and put our garlic right in there. Awesome. So that was the timer just telling you my oven is finally at the temp. Again, I set my oven to 475, so it's going to be a little high. Oh, that smells so good already. So we're just getting our garlic a little bit brown. Browning your garlic is going to add a whole bunch of flavor. That nice sort of caramelization that you get from like a really good piece of grilled meat, or some caramelized onions if you take the time. It just adds a lot to it, and garlic especially is just so good when you brown it right. But don't burn it. It is very, very easy to burn your garlic. And, you know, there are certain situations where burnt garlic is really good. You can make almost like a garlic crisp. And that can be really nice, like as a garnish on the soup, but we're not doing that today. We want nice, perfect garlic. So the recipe says a cup of onion. This is definitely more than a cup of onion, but I think that that's totally okay. I really, really like to break my own recipes. The recipe is meant to be a guideline if you need to cook this and you don't know what you're doing. But for me, I pretty much will always put more vegetables into my dishes. So my garlic's nice and brown. I'm gonna go ahead and show you it real quick. It's gonna, hopefully you can see what I'm talking about. It's just a little bit brown on the edges. Definitely super close to burning. So I'm gonna put my onions in there. And what that'll do is that'll lower the temperature and start to protect my garlic, so we don't have to worry about it burning. And I love a really high walled pan for cooking soups, just so I can do what I basically just did and just go to town. So we're gonna cut the tops off of our carrots, and then we're gonna cut them into a piece of carrot that's shorter than my knife. So this is too long, so I'm gonna cut this in half, cut off the tip. This is going to town over here. Turn this down a little bit. All right, calm down. And then we're just going to cut these all about the same length. And that's going to help us to, again, have consistent shapes and sizes. We want things to be fairly small. So now we're going to take our carrots. Make sure we got a good shot here. Yeah, cool. We're going to take our carrots and we're going to cut these into planks. Right, so you're just going to cut straight down. This is a pretty big carrot, so I'm going to do 4 planks. You want something that looks like that. That's going to be your planks. And then you're going to take one of them out so you get a nice flat bottom. And you're going to take that and you're going to cut that into 6. Again, probably 4 times. And then you're just going to stack that up. We're going to do a couple stacks and then dice them all up. All right, what's going on here? My stove is being weird. And I've also skipped a step because that's just how I do. I forgot to cook our meat. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop that in right now. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna push the onions to the side and pop my meat in there and cook the meat in the open space. And that's gonna give me some of that, that sort of sticking and caramelization on the bottom that I wanted. Sometimes, you know, you don't follow your own recipes so much that you skip steps, but that's okay, we're gonna make it work. The most important thing is that the garlic, or rather the ricotta and the chicken and the parsley from that meatball is in here, so that we can sort of start to get that flavor incorporated into the soup. All right, so let's just let's keep planking and then sticking our carrots here. Planks and then sticks, and then from sticks, that's probably different. Now from sticks, we're going to go into cubes. Just stack them all up. Just run right along there. Get yourself some nice cubes. Awesome. Looking good. So my timer just went off. So let's take a peek in our oven. See what our meatballs are looking like. See if we got any questions. Where did I buy the pasta? Yeah, it was at the Edgartown Pasta. It was hiding, right? So there's this, there was like something hanging literally right in front of the pasta. It was insane. You can also use Israeli couscous. It's a lot more expensive, but that works just as well. Oh yeah, sorry about that. Sorry, Sherry. I definitely, like I said, messed up my own recipe. But we fixed it. This is good. I got some nice caramelization on the bottom of this pan for sure. My stove's being a little weird. It's kind of hot. I'm just gonna take that off the heat for now. I don't know what's going on there. These meatballs look really good. Oh yeah. Okay, timer. I see you. So I'm just gonna take these out. Give you a quick look. Cancel. So they're starting to cook. They're turning pale on the outside. And if I can get one of these to come off, which sometimes it's a little hard to do early, you'll see they're like a little brown on the bottom. So they're still definitely starting. These are a little stickier than they were last time, which is unfortunate. I think my oven maybe was not as hot. Oh, no, there we go. That's good. Yeah, there we go. So sometimes they stick and that happens, but you can see that one's nice and brown on the bottom. So we're just going to kind of hit them here. Take a spatula if you've got one. Try and take them off the bottom. And it's okay if there's stuff that's left behind and they stick, we're gonna go ahead and scrape all that off at the end of the process, right into the soup. It's just gonna add to the flavor, so it's totally fine. Kind of shake them if you can. I have very old sheet pans, hence why these are sticking. With a newer sheet pan, it has a lot less sort of old mistakes stuck to it. These are likely gonna come right off, but yeah, you know, get yourself a little spatula if you need to, and just try and scrape them off. Beautiful, they're all clear, and then we're just gonna give them a little roll around, give them a couple of flips, try and get some other sides on the bottom, and pop them back in there. And I think maybe I'm gonna go another 7 minutes. Should be perfect. So my oven is so crazy, I have to literally turn it off and back on every time. It's a hassle working with old electric ovens. All right, so I'm just gonna pop my carrots in here now. The onions are nice and soft. I don't have all of them cut, but I just I'm gonna get them in there so we can start continuing to build our soup. So we're gonna go back to carrots. We're gonna plank them all. And you can chop this stuff beforehand if you want to. I always like to do the chops here just so you can kind of see my method. But yeah, like totally cut all of your veggies beforehand. If you want to just sort of cook this all at once, it's going to save you a lot of time in the moment. And you can just keep them in the fridge. You know, you can put the carrots and onions and celery all in one container. You don't have to add them in layers like I'm doing right now. I'm just doing that because I happen to be chopping them while I'm cooking. But they do all cook at about the same speed. So you can totally just toss them all in at the same time if you want. After you've browned your meat, which I totally didn't do. Beautiful. Yeah, something is definitely wacko with my my stove over here. I have this on low. Oh well, getting some really nice fond on the bottom. And you know, when you're working with stuff like this, you just kind of do what you're doing. So what I'm doing here is I'm leaving it on the heat for a bit, and then I'm taking it off the heat to stir it, making sure I don't burn my bottom. But we're gonna have liquid in there soon, so it's gonna be totally okay. Okay, beautiful. There's the carrots going in. I'm gonna try this other burner, see if I can get a little bit better luck there. Awesome. All right, so now we're gonna pop over to celery. So we had onions in there, carrots in there. Now we're going for celery. I'm gonna use about 6 sprigs, I think. That's probably good for me. I'm just gonna cut the bottom off all of them here, and then just pick 6 nice ones. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Got all the ones from the outside. You can just save the rest. You know, you can make a stock with it. You can put it in another dish. You can also put it in there if you really like celery. Like, go for it. It's not gonna hurt my feelings. So we're just gonna take off these little pieces of the celery here. I don't mind them too much, and the top's actually good. I'm gonna eat that. But they can be sort of bitter sometimes, especially with store-bought celery. So I'm just gonna get rid of the greens. We don't need that. And then just like with the carrots, I'm gonna cut these in half so that they're less than the length of my knife. And that's gonna help when we cut them into sticks for dicing. All right, beautiful. Comments here? Yeah, and totally, you can, every single recipe I make is up to you. If you wanna, you know, put the meat in, you don't even have to put the meat in the actual soup. You know, it's gonna have the meatballs in it eventually. So just make a couple meatballs and add that as well. For me, I like to brown my meat first, just so, like I said, you can sort of get that fond on the bottom, but it is by no means an essential process. It's just a matter, yeah, this one's working a lot better, which is weird because usually this is the one that burns. I think they're like switching back and forth. All right. It's all about sort of just making a really a lot of flavor. You want to layer that flavor. So every time you can take an opportunity to add more flavor to the dish, I like to do that. And so that's what browning meat usually does. It gets that that sort of caramelized meat flavor in there, which is a sort of different dynamic flavor than the sort of you know, roasted meat flavor we're going to have from the oven. But do whatever makes you comfy. I guarantee you can't mess this recipe up. As long as you put vegetables in a pot with chicken broth and some salt and pepper, you are going to have something that's delicious. And those meatballs are really, really just going to bring the whole thing together. So I'm just stacking up my sticks here. I'm going to go ahead and dice these all at once. This is going to add a lot of moisture. So carrots are kind of dry. Onions have a decent amount of moisture, but celery, that is just a very, very wet vegetable. I love how much moisture is in it. So as soon as we put this in the soup, it's going to almost deglaze our pan and start to really pull off all of the juices that, or rather all of the fond that we have developed here with our very, very hot stove. I am so confused. I just cooked on this yesterday too, so it's something has failed in the interim. All right, in you go, celery. And celery definitely takes the least time to cook, which is why I'm putting it in here last. And then onions like the heat the most. They like to really caramelize, which is why I put them in first. Technically, carrots are going to cook faster than onions, but for me, it's all about letting those onions have some time to caramelize. This one doesn't look any better. Well, I might have to get a new stove here, guys. We're going to make it work, though. This is cooking. Maybe if I try this. That way. I just turned it to just the middle burner. That might be the solution. That is beautiful. Ooh, there's our, no, that's not our timer. Well, that's my oven. So I'm gonna head in here with pepper. Don't want to do one. This is the best time to season it when it's really, really hot like this. We're gonna put our Italian seasoning as well. You can put it in with the broth if you want, but I always like to toast my herbs if I can. I feel like it just makes the flavor bloom a little bit more. And we're gonna go for some salt. Again, I'm not using a lot of salt, but that's pretty much the only salt I'm gonna put in there. I maybe put like a tablespoon in. Let's go ahead and pop the top on these Italian herbs. And we're gonna go pretty heavy. This is really like our only flavoring element here is these herbs. We're obviously using, ooh, nice. We obviously have like all the veggies and stuff in there, and those count as flavoring. But as far as like spices and such, yeah, this is pretty much our main jammer. And so I probably use that much. It's probably like a tablespoon or so, just from a full jar. You want to kind of see. I don't know if that's focusing or not. Hopefully it is. There we go. That's how much I use from the full jar. So quite a bit. Definitely not going slow here. Not skimping. All right. I love making a mess. Beautiful. And the last bit is going to be these greens, which we will cook, the greens and the pasta, which we're going to put in towards the end. So right now, though, we're going to toss our, let's give this one last stir. Make sure those veggies have really started to cook. Beautiful. They look so good. See if I can pull this over here. So that's our timer for our meatballs. Let's go ahead and take those out. Oh, yeah. Beautiful. So they're looking nice. They're pretty firm. You should be able to pick them right up off the pan. I mean, they're hot, obviously, but they should be nice and firm, much firmer than the last time you checked on them. So just go ahead and take those out to cool. Okay. Turn your oven off. You're not going to need that anymore. If you do want to get every single bit out of the soup, you can leave your oven on. And what you can do is put a little bit of the broth in here after you take the meatballs off, and that'll sort of deglaze the oven pan. But we're not going to do that today. We're just going to scrape it. So here, let me show you guys what these look like. Hopefully. So these are the veggies. Hopefully you can see through the smoke. There's so much steam. But they're kind of brown. Oh yeah, there we go. Maybe I'll do that. They're a little brown, mainly because my temperature was very, very hot, which I was not planning on. But my onions have a little bit of caramelization going on, my carrots and everything. Smells amazing. Got some nice garlic in there. You really do want this to be a little bit less brown than that, if possible. I'm obviously dealing with some weird sabotage here on my stove. But if you can go a little bit lighter, you definitely don't want that much caramelization. It's going to taste really good though, so I'm not sad about it. But classically, this soup is more of like a light, like I said, sort of refreshing soup where you know, you can taste every single bit of it, all the veggies and stuff. So we're going to put both of our containers of stock in here. It's going to be 8 ounces, all said, or not 8 ounces, 8 cups, all said. Just 2 quarts of stock. That's going to just change sound in here really, really good. So I shouldn't have to worry too much now about the high temp because we actually want this to come to a boil. So Turn that back up. Let that come to a boil. Beautiful. Just a little stir. Oh yeah, nice. Now it's just kind of a waiting game. We want to make sure the big sort of points of order at this point are we want our greens and our pasta to go in there at the same time because they're both going to take the same amount of time to cook. So let's go ahead and look at the pasta package here. It says for cooking this pasta, it's 11 minutes to firm, 12 minutes to tender, and 10 minutes to al dente. We want al dente. Realistically, we want everything in this pasta, in this soup, to be al dente, including the vegetables. We want a little bit of bite to them. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 10 minutes. When we think that we're 10 minutes out from all the vegetables being al dente, we're going to go ahead and put this in there. So now those vegetables have already cooked for a while. So realistically, pretty much as soon as that comes to a boil, we're going to be able to put this right in there and then put our timer on for 10 minutes. So I think that's what I'm going to do because I think those veggies, after that comes to a boil, will likely be cooked. And then after 10 minutes, or close to cooked, then after 10 minutes, I think they'll be perfect. You could potentially wait, maybe do like 5 minutes at a slow simmer first. Just taste your veggies, put your spoon in there. Again, I was cooking on a really, really hot stove, way hotter than I anticipated. So I think my veggies got a lot more cooked than they normally would. If you did something like chop before, your veggies probably didn't have as much time in the pan as mine. So, go ahead and give them a little bit more time to boil in the broth before you put your pasta in. But just give them a taste. They should be kind of crunchy, but definitely starting to get soft. And once they're at that point, that's when you can go ahead and put your greens and your pasta in it and go to town. All right. So let's start cutting our greens. We want this to be about as small as possible. I grabbed a couple extra pieces, but I think this might be good. You can usually buy greens in bunches, and I think one bunch is basically what you kind of want for this. Cool. Just check, make sure there's no bugs in there. And you just want to stack them up. These ones actually came stacked, which is kind of nice. You want to stack them up sort of inside of each other like that. Nice little tight package. I'm using kale. You can literally use anything you want. I really like broccolini in this, but I couldn't find it on the island, so I wasn't trying to make everyone run around trying to find it. And what we're going to do here is we're going to do something similar to what we did with the carrots. We're gonna cut sticks basically out of our kale, and then we're gonna dice it. So you got it all stacked up. You're gonna go long ways and just cut through it. So you make little strips. Just go right through the stem. We're gonna put all the stem in there too. It's gonna fall apart a little bit, but that's okay. We're gonna put it back together. So go ahead and cut our strips here. And we're just gonna turn these strips, try and keep them in one piece. And this helps a lot if you have big hands. I do definitely have an advantage in that. So we're just gonna gather this together, hold it all together, and then you're just gonna come through on this side and cut it as thin as you can, getting a really nice dice on this. We do want it to be sort of big, and there's gonna be pieces that are big. That's kind of the beauty of this method, is you're never gonna get everything sort of the same, and we're not gonna run our knife over the top of this again. So it's just gonna be the way that it is, and it's gonna be absolutely delicious and have some pretty big pieces in there. These are, like I said, this and the meatballs are gonna be the two big things that that really you find with your mouth, that you're gonna be able to be like, wow, that's a big piece, or you had to slurp it up, from the bowl because it was just a little too big and it sort of maybe hung out of your mouth as you took it. And that's quite a lot of greens. Might be too much greens, but we're gonna see what happens. I might add a little bit of liquid to the stock too. All right, so sweet. While we're letting this boil, we're gonna do the most exciting part of cooking, which is cleaning. So I'm just gonna start putting some stuff away. I'm gonna prepare for the next part of the meal, which is going to be sort of adding everything back into the soup and waiting for our pasta to cook. And then we are going to, we're going to serve it up and show you guys what this looks like with some nice garnish on it. I personally like Parmesan cheese with mine. You can use pretty much anything you like. I actually don't know if I have Parmesan cheese, which is unfortunate, but I do have some parsley, which is going to definitely go in there. Let's see what else we got for a garnish. See, I didn't mise en place my garnish, right? Slacking over here. Oh, look at that. I got Parmesan cheese. That's what I'm talking about. Parmesan cheese, always good. So we're really just waiting for this to come to a boil, which it is very, very close to right now. My meatballs have cooled pretty much completely. Well, enough that I can definitely handle them well now. So just going to show you them. The colors changed a little bit, which is good. They're starting to brown a little bit on the sides. This one had a chance to sort of brown a little bit, but not perfect. They were definitely better the first time I made them. I don't know if it's the size or maybe, I'm not sure. Maybe it's just the pan. I actually use a different pan too, but like I said, like a better pan is going to be better. And realistically, you're putting them in a soup, so it's going to be fine. But what you really want is when you break them apart like that, you can see the nice green parsley and everything's mixed up really well. You can actually see some sort of chunks of chicken in there. It's not completely homogenized. And it's nice and juicy too. I don't know if you can see the juice running, but if you're cooking with me, go ahead and pop one of those in your mouth. They're really good. Oh my God. That is tasty. Big fan of that. Let's see if I missed any questions up here. Yeah, Joy, I'll go back into the pasta thing. So if you're in the pasta aisle, it's Edgartown Stop and Shop, which is where I go. You're looking straightforward. You have like the Stop and Shop brand, and then I think it's like Prince or something like that. There's literally like some sort of hanging tool or something that like they've put in literally right in front of where the pasta is. It is. I was like so upset. I'm like, I gotta buy this Israeli couscous. I mean, Israeli couscous is great. Don't get me wrong, but it's like 3 times as much expensive as this stuff. It's a little bit bigger, which is cool. But this stuff actually is perfect. So, and it's in a little box, but they're hiding it. I don't know why they're hiding it. It's really weird. But I was very happy to find it, and I'm sorry that you were not able to find it, but it does exist, I promise. I actually had not seen it because of that in the entire time I've been in a Stop and Shop in my whole life. I'd never seen this pasta until I was forced to look for it. And then it just was there. So I think my water's boiling, which is good. Oh yeah, totally. We do not support any particular brands, but this is the one I bought. And it's, it's a pretty small little box, so it's definitely easy to miss. All right. Yep, we got boiled. Sweet. Okay. So I'm going to go in our pasta first because this is going to take, I think, the longest to cook of all these. The meatballs are already cooked. And I don't want to put too much in because this will grow. I'm going to put in 3/4 cups. All right, so that's the sort of the ratio, 3/4 cups to 2 quarts of broth. That should get us the right amount. We want it to be part of the dish. We want it to be, a nice mouthfeel and definitely a good experience, but we really, really, really don't want to make a porridge. We want a soup. Porridge is great, don't get me wrong. I love porridge. I love putting barley into like a soup and just watching it slowly and surely get thicker and thicker and thicker until, basically it becomes a porridge, and then you let it cool overnight and it sort of coagulates into this mess. I love porridges, especially savory porridges. Big fan. So I'm not opposed to porridge. Let's set our timer. So I put the pasta in there. That's going for 10 minutes. We're gonna go ahead and put our greens in there. I'm gonna add some and then I'm gonna stir it because again, I don't want a porridge. I really do want a soup. So I just want to make sure that we have enough liquid in here. And the greens have some of their own liquid too, but I'm using kale. If I was using something like spinach or broccolini or something that had more water in its body, I wouldn't be as worried about this. So that's one bunch for sure. It's going in there. So pasta and greens, same time. We're going to cook it. Actually going to do. We're doing 8 minutes on my timer. So right before the pasta and greens are done, I'm going to put all the meatballs in there. You can put the meatballs in earlier if you have like a stove that will actually simmer your soup. But my stove is going buck wild right now, so I really don't want them to break apart. I don't think they will break apart, but I'm just a little bit worried about it. So, yeah. So this pasta is really cool. It looks a little bit like spaghetti that's just been chopped, which honestly, It might be how they make it. Let me see if you can even see that. Let me put some more in my hand. It's a really, really cool pasta. And when it cooks, it just turns into like the most beautiful little pearls of pasta in there. It's super fun, super tasty. And if you ever had Israeli couscous, or what else is it called? It's called large pearl couscous. That's what it's called also. It's a very similar texture to that. All right, so let's taste the seasoning on this too while this is going. Now's a good time to make sure you don't need any extra salt in there or anything like that. I'm gonna pop in here, take some broth out of here. Oh, that's really good. Ooh. Mm. Oh yeah, okay, that's delicious. That's a win right there, folks. I think some of it is that I just don't eat a lot of salt lately. So the fact that I actually salted this soup pretty heavily is, I think, weighing in on my taste buds here. But I'm not complaining. That's really good. It just tastes good. It tastes like vegetables. It tastes like chicken. It tastes like, you know, all the herbs and the garlic we put in there. It's just good. So we're gonna use a little bit of parsley here as a garnish. Garnished parsley, you're definitely going to want more of the leaves. So I'm going to cut a little harder towards the top, and save your stems. You know, this is going to make a really great stock for you if you want to do that. So we're just going to, again, just like before, we're going to sort of gather this up into a little ball and do nice thin shaves off of the side of the ball, as thin as you possibly can. This is a garnish, so it doesn't have to be as crazily chopped. So that should be good. Clean up time. You clean while you cook. You don't have to clean when you're done cooking. And then you can just eat, which is my favorite part of cooking. Part of why I like being a chef is when you're the chef, you get to eat while you're cooking as well as when you're done. You know, you get to taste everything and make sure it's good. You know, most people who are eaters and not chefs or cooks only get to eat the final product, but you get to eat it every single stage of the way. So yeah, my stove is definitely broken, which is unfortunate, but that's okay. Maybe I'll have a nice new stove for the next program. Starting to look good, starting to thicken up too as that pasta starts to cook. Oh yeah. This is gonna be tasty. Okay, so let's see. We got some Parmesan, we got some parsley. What else should we put on there as a garnish? I think I even told you guys one other garnish. What did I say? Let's take a look. Yes. Oh God, yeah. You could totally use orzo. Orzo is actually a pretty classic substitution for this dish. I almost thought about putting orzo on there just because I wasn't sure everybody would be able to find this this pasta. But when I saw it at Stop and Shop, I was like, oh yeah, we can totally do that. Let's see, wedding soup. Oh yeah, bread. Duh. Ooh yeah, let's get some great bread. My partner made some really, really tasty bread. So let's pop a piece of that on there for our plating. All right, so I usually just use a normal knife for this. We're just gonna make ourselves a nice little piece here, and you can toast it, put butter on it, all that. For me though, I'm just gonna do a nice little cross. Anytime I'm like trying to plate to make things look pretty, I find that points tend to be really useful. You can do something like that, and it kind of has like a nice little like, come on, Brand, like that. And it has like a nice little sort of geometric experience. You've got point, point, point. You know, threes are supposed to be really lucky. And you can just sort of lean it up against the side of the bowl. So that's what we're going to do there. This is just going absolutely buck wild. Everything's looking really good though. Take a peek at that pasta. Get a nice bowl here. My veggies are good. Still a little tooth to them, you know. I'll let I'm eating a carrot. I can tell I'm eating celery. Pasta still needs a little more time, which we knew was gonna happen. Awesome. So yeah, guys, if you have any more questions, now's definitely the time. We are getting pretty close to completion here on this soup. I'm going to show you how to plate it, and then you guys can head off into the night to cook them yourself if you like. Yeah, put your questions in the chat. I'll come back and check in just a sec. Doing more cleanup. It doesn't have to be about this dish either. It can be about literally anything. If you were cooking, you know, last week and you had this question you couldn't find it on the internet, or you didn't feel like using the internet, here I am. I will hopefully be able to answer your question. All right, awesome. So there's our timer. That means we're putting meatballs in. Go forth, meatballs. Find your destiny in my belly. I'm just scraping them off, scraping all that beautiful bottom flavor out of there too. Anything that's stuck, just gonna give it a little scrape, put it right in there. It's gonna add, soften up the soup and add some nice little flavor. Perfect. Just back on the heat. 2 more minutes and we are done. So it's looking pretty thick. And I know I put more salt in there than I usually would. So I'm actually going to go ahead and I'm going to thin this out with a little bit of water. Really fun thing about soup is if it's too thick, you can just make more soup by adding water. Water and salt to a thick soup makes more soup. It's like a magic. All right, beautiful. Yeah, there we go. I probably shouldn't have put cold water in there, but that's okay. I think the pasta actually cooked a little faster because of how hard that was boiling. Yeah, you found the recipe. Yeah, it is. It's a lot of fun. This soup is, I mean, that took me like what time is it? That took me an hour, right? But like, you could easily do this in much less time if you did a little bit of prep beforehand, or if you just had, you could cook 2 things at once. You can do like so many things to sort of break this. You can also cook the meatballs in the soup. If you're capable of having like a nice low simmer, obviously my stove is crazy and didn't want to do that. But if you're capable of having a nice low simmer, you can actually put the meatballs right in raw, simmer it in with the broth and the vegetables while it cooks, and they'll cook completely. They'll be nice and soft and sort of pillowy too, because they'll absorb extra moisture instead of sort of dehydrating a bit in the oven, which is why we did it in the oven, is to get a nice sort of protective barrier on the outside. But there's a lot of different ways to save time in this. Thank you, Sherry. And I am really excited for next month too. Once I get this plated up, I'll have a quick little blurb about next month, and then we'll close her up. Next month is going to be fun though, and then February is going to be my absolute favorite. I'm not sure. We'll yeah, check the newsletter. We'll get into it. I've got a couple things planned out though. All right, guys, this looks divine. It's done. Oh, where's my? Oh, you know it's okay. Get yourself a ladle. Make sure we get a couple meatballs in there. Just make sure that pasta's done before I go any further. This pasta can be kind of hard to test too, because it's so small. You want it al dente, so That's perfect. All right, give it a nice little stir here. Let's get it plated up so I can show you guys sort of what the final product looks like. Generally, the best way to do this is try and get, you know, a good scoop with as many meatballs as you can right from the bottom, and then cover that with a nice scoop of full veggies, and then finish off with at least 2 meatballs. All right, I'm a 3-scoop guy for pretty much any soup. So I did a scoop with a bunch of meatballs for the bottom. And then I did a scoop with just veggies, basically from the exact same place I took the meatballs out. And then I went and found 2 meatballs, put them in my ladle with veggies, and that's my top. And that gives me a nice sort of like, it shows the meatballs are in there, but then it hides the sort of the treat of the meatballs down at the bottom, so people don't eat all the meatballs out right in front at the beginning. So we got that there, looking really pretty. Let's just sort of make some space so we can sort of get real nice and close to that, see how beautiful it looks. So, you know, for plating, if you want, you can kind of like put your meatballs a little closer together. You know, what I do is, like I said, I'd probably do like a nice little like sort of cross beam bread, so extra parsley on top. You know, you can, I love parsley, so I'm putting a lot in there. And then just take a little Parmesan cheese as well, and call it a night. That's it. That's your wedding soup right there. You stir that up, that cheese is going to melt a little bit, and really see if I can get some of the steam off there. Really sort of make a nice, like almost creamy broth. And you can do so many things. You can put cream in this. You can change the different types of meat. You know, it doesn't have to be chicken. It can be a pork or a beef or venison. You know, tis the season at least. And you can skip meat entirely. You could make like a mushroom meatball or something like that, or just use actual like button mushrooms. Like toss whole button mushrooms in there. They'll give you sort of that meatball experience of like a nice sort of whole thing, but they're not going to, you know, force you to use meat. You can use veggie broth, of course, instead of chicken broth if you want to avoid that. Awesome, guys. So it doesn't look like Virginia's back, which is totally fine. I'm just going to go ahead and end this soon. But thanks, everybody, for coming. This has been so much fun. I absolutely love this soup, and I'm happy that we were able to successfully make it. I hope you guys all have great success with this. I hope you have really, really fabulous holidays. And make sure to tune in and check our newsletter for next month. We are going to finally do a dessert. I'm not really much of a dessert cook, but I'm pretty happy with this one. I think it's going to turn out really, really good. And it's actually 3 different recipes that you'll be able to use to do all sorts of other things. But we're going to put them together into one delicious dessert. So it's going to be a really, really good technical challenge. And something that you'll be able to use for the rest of your life. So definitely make sure to tune in. I believe we're doing it. I don't think we picked a date yet, but that's okay. Check the newsletter. Make sure you sign up, and we'll see you all next month. Thanks everybody for coming. I really appreciate this. And if you want to see any more recipes, you can check it out on either our YouTube, Edgartown Library YouTube, or you can go on my old Trash Panda EPL.wordpress.com, and that's got a whole bunch of recipes from when I was in quarantine with myself and my partner. There's good cocktails there too, so check it out, have some fun, and thanks for coming, everybody. It was really, really fun.